Oh my gosh. Aaron Culmer, welcome to the School of Light, mate. This is the very first episode of a part of the project, which I'm calling an image breakdown. And I couldn't think of anyone better to invite on as my first, subject maybe? You're in America. How's it been?
It's been awesome, man. It's summertime here. It's bloody hot, and that means that we can actually stay out later and light paint. The days are longer, but you know what? Summertime is a nice time to grow and get out and light paint and actually adventure out into the bush, out into the forest. And so for me, that's a huge part. In the wintertime, we're often locked indoors, and so sunshine and warmth means happier models, means longer treks further away from home. So for me, it's been great.
Amazing. I was up in the Flinders Ranges in the Australian outback on the weekend, freezing my date off, man. My fingers felt like they were going to fall off. So we're on opposite sides of the planet. Look, I want to introduce you quickly, mate. Aaron Culmer is not only a fantastic light painter, as you're going to see in a second, but he also has a fantastic podcast that I'll link below. You're not going to miss it. I would encourage all light painters or anyone keen on light painting to definitely go and have a look through. We did an episode together, mate, that I thought was fantastic. You bring this energy to the podcast, which I love desperately, because you do this thing that I love so much about our art form, is you go, I think about it like this, like behind the screen, we focus so much on those squares that go on the internet, and I really enjoy how you go a little deeper, and you pick some very, very, very cool people as well, mate. So I would encourage everyone to go and have a look at the podcast. It's a buzz. Okay, let's get into it. So the idea of the image breakdown is we're going to pick an image, mate, that you love and that I love. And the idea is that we would just want to inspire people, not so much, just inspire. That it's as simple as that. So it's very quick fire. This is the first episode, so we'll stumble our way through it, mate. So I have some questions for you. We'll try and keep it brief. Okay, so mate, how long have you been into light painting?
I've been light painting for about 2.5 years, which in the scheme of things isn't that long, actually, but I light paint quite a bit. In fact, I light paint almost every day, if not every night. And so you can probably expand that 2.5 years into something more normal, as in maybe five years, because I'm doing it every day. And so that means I'm just practicing and doing repetitions and doing other exercises to get better and to practice and to hone my craft. So 2.5 quick years, and it's been quite the journey. It's been amazing.
It's been a journey for you, and that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting one, because if we think about that, I've probably been light painting for about 3 months. So I don't go out anywhere near enough, which is good. Now I'm looking. I actually have a list of questions here, which is pretty rad. Okay, mate. So here's something that I thought I would love to ask you. Describe to me a positive emotion that you feel when you're light painting.
The one word that really kind of hits home for me is liberation. It's a liberating feeling. It's a liberation from my soul. It's a liberation from my imagination. And when I'm light painting, I feel like I am free. I feel like I am flying and soaring without boundaries. And all of the limitations that the real world, if you want to say, the normal world of jobs and duties and obligations all melt away when I'm light painting. I get to, it's almost a transformative experience for me that I'm leaving this world and I'm joining myself and my soul into an imaginary realm that I get to actually bring and put onto the camera and then express myself in that way. And so liberation is definitely why I do it. It's definitely keeps me coming back. It fills my internal cup. I feel fulfilled when I walk off a light painting set. Yeah. And it's just a really, really amazing way for me to express myself.
Beautiful, man. It's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's what it's about. for a lot of people, I think. When it gets hard, like on those nights, man, when you're either not feeling it or like when it gets hard, do you, like for me, when it gets hard, I have a bad habit of just walking away. Well, that's not bad. I mean, what do you do? Like when it gets hard, what do you do?
You know, it often gets hard. If
Yeah.
anyone tells you that light painting is easy, they're totally lying to you. I've said this on my podcast. Stay with it, you know. Find motivation in your art, you know. Remember why you started this process. Remember the joy of painting. Remember the joy of expressing yourself through creating something. And that's something that all artists can share, whether you're a dancer, a musician, an actor, anything you create with your own hands or your own mind is really something that's coming from your soul, and you're birthing this out into the world.
Yeah.
And so when it gets hard, and it often will, step back, take a few deep breaths, remember the joy of being a kid. Remember the joy and the fun of the first time that you put a colored crayon or a marker or a pencil in your hand and you made your first little thing, and you're like, wow, I just did that. And it looks like something I know in the real world, like a flower or a house.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what keeps me going, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, wicked.
Yeah.
The crazy thing, and this is what you do on your podcast, is we could talk for hours on that. All right, but the idea of the image breakdown, mate, is looking at an image. Now you've shared an image with me that I've seen many times online, and I'm really pleased that you chose this image because it does a whole lot of things that I love. I'm quite new to photography, and I like looking back at what makes good photography. And it boils down to this. There's two things for me. I don't give a shit if an image is in focus, if it's noisy. It's all bullshit to me. I care about two things. One is that an image it needs to do one of two things. Either it needs to make me feel an emotion, so a memory for me, remind me of something, or it needs to tell a story. And the thing about this image that you shared with me is there's really clearly a story there. And I think the story is a little deeper than the fact that you clearly work out. Tell me, what is, so we're going to do two things. I want to know a little bit about the story, and then we'll have a quick breakdown of the process, mate. So tell me the thing I'll ask you. There's some symbols in there. Talk to me about that, and talk to me about the book.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is a homage to Buddha, and he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, you know, and I've always been enlightened by, or I've always been enraptured by this story. And I really feel that the human experience can never stop learning and can never stop growing. And I wanted to somehow express myself in this way. And I wanted to tell a story about never stop searching and never stop finding yourself. You know, this image right here is not only an homage to Buddha and him being enlightened under the tree, but the book symbolizes just knowledge and my thirst for knowledge and my continuing to trying to be a better person and a better human being on the planet. And so, you know, the tree, him sitting under the tree, the symbols coming off the page there's nothing that you could decipher from them that actually says anything but knowledge. Yeah. And it was a magical way. I actually did pretty much all of this photo with one hand. If you notice in most of my self-portraits, I'm actually holding the off-camera flash in my off hand. And so you'll see that there will always be one hand behind my back to hide that, which means that the other hand, which is often my dominant right hand, will be painting the rest of the image.
All right. So let's go there. Let's break it down, man. So there's two schools of thought in light painting, as you know, and this is always controversial, and there'll be some of these image breakdowns where this gets a little intense. And I know you are, I'm a big fan of creating an image in one exposure, right? Now, whether that's basically in camera, we all make adjustments to images and post, but there's, you know, I'm not interested in really in seeing light paintings that are composited. I want to know, when I look at your photograph, am I looking at a single exposure?
Yeah, yeah. And what's really crazy is that when I first took on this kind of new series, if you will, about self-portraits, which I dread self-portraits. I really don't like to be on camera. I really don't want to be in my own photographs.
Yep.
I like to be the one painting other people. And so this was a huge self-discovery series for me, and an act of courage almost, to actually say, you know what, I'm going to do start to finish. I'm going to illustrate my own scene.
Yep.
I'm going to I'm going to insert myself into my own photo.
Yep.
I'm going to do everything backwards because I had to freeze myself in the photo in the very last. Yeah. So
break it down, man. I want to know, in a succinct way, how do you do that? So how are you in the image, and then the painting? Give me a snapshot of the workflow.
Yeah. Okay. So the workflow is you want to start on the peripheral edges of your frame.
Yep.
And most people, if you're especially in a studio, sometimes they don't think about what's going on in the frame. And this is I shoot with a full frame camera, so use the full frame. You know, sometimes beginner light painters don't paint the background or in the forest or any surrounding areas, and then it comes out, there's a beautiful light painting, but the setting isn't quite there. And so I know that I had to start from the outside in. And I also had to start from the back towards not back of the set, but actually I had to reverse the order of how you typically would light paint, because I'm doing it myself. And so I have to be still, and I have to remember where I'm at, because although I do have markers on the floor, I do have illuminated glow in the dark stars or tape or whatever you use to mark my spot. Still, you're never going to get the seated position ever quite right, you know? And so if you really look at this image, I start with a tree. And so I've done a couple tutorials on how to draw trees. I'm really into drawing nature, and this is why. And so I drew the tree, and all of the tree is done with a pencil. It's a light painting paradise pencil. I did my tutorials with a blade as the leaf. And so I would just fire off, I would pop a bunch of leaves. But this one actually is hand drawn. Every leaf is hand drawn. Until I got tired. until I really got tired. So this image in total probably took me, I think it was about 14 and a half minutes total.
Whoa.
And I think that the tree part took about 8 to 9 minutes.
Yep.
And then I sat down with the book.
Yep.
And I knew that with my pencil, I turned it to green. It was actually, I believe, still on green from the leaves. Yeah. And that way I could actually do the grass, which is very simple. And I don't see anyone else doing grass, but grass really fills the image. And we're talking about the peripheral edges of the image.
Yeah.
This actually shows a lot of depth in your photo. So I was sitting down, but I was reaching as far back as possible and drawing around me. And I was drawing under my legs. I was drawing around my knees, because if you can draw around yourself, that really solidifies your positioning in the photo. Yep. And so now I've got all of the nature done. I've got the tree above me. I've got the grass all around me. Yep. So now I've got, well, this is a multi-layered photo. I mean, like this is a really in-depth photo, and thank you for choosing it. And so now I'm sitting there. I've got to find my remote, which was next to me in my lap. And this remote was for the off-camera flash, which I typically don't use, but for a self-portrait with no one else around, there's really nothing else I can do. And so I chose to do that. Yep. And then I took the light painting paradise pencil and I turned it to orange. Yep. And then holding the book with my left hand, I painted the symbols coming off of the page. Yep. I also painted what looked like maybe script onto the book itself.
I see that.
It didn't quite translate how I really envisioned it, but that was the idea, was that there would be some script on the book and you would see that, and it would also lift off the book. And so I've got 3 different glyphs, if you will.
Yep.
It's not exactly calligraphy. It's really light drawing. I would say calligraphy is actually a roll of the wrist, and it's actually a formal way to do a writing. And this was not a roll of the wrist. This was just in 2 dimensions.
Yep.
Just some glyphs. Now, it does resemble some Chinese characters that I have been playing with. But in reality, if you gave this to some sort of language or linguist, they would be like, I don't know if this makes sense. But that wasn't the point. The point was that it was a magical book. There is a point that the image speaks of enlightenment or a furthering a thirst of knowledge, a thirst of going deeper inside of yourself. And so I've got the book, I've got the glyphs, I've got a scripter, which is a little key light chain I often use for my little flares, if you will. And so around my head, I did a couple above my head, I did a couple around the book. I made sure that I was lateral enough, because remember, you're thinking in terms of lateral and medial, at least I am on an XY plane. And so I knew where the camera was looking and where I needed to be as far as outside spatial orientation of the flares. And so now I've got fairies around me that are maybe coming off the book, or maybe they're just around the tree. I've got the tree, I've got the book, everything. So now I'm ready to fire the flash. So I sit down and I give it a good earnest look, and I hit the flash.
A bit of a flex there, mate? Were you doing a bit of a...
You know what? There might have been a little camera flex. I gotta admit, there might have been, you know, I can't say that I probably wake up like that. Maybe I do. But, you know, with all of that working backwards, I was able to was able to flash myself, to freeze myself into the image, praying that my spatial orientation of the rest of the frame would work. And when I hit the back of the image, I have noise reduction on. Anytime you're probably going to be light drawing or painting or anything of this over 30 seconds, I highly recommend noise reduction. It can be a pain as far as waiting around. It's a bane of my existence. But when you're doing fine art, or when you're doing, you know, longer exposures, and you're looking for something that could be printed at some point, I highly recommend it to use the noise reduction.
So I have a so this is the moment where I give you some feedback, and I tell you how I feel about the image. So I haven't done a lot of light writing or calligraphy. I've done a bit. I've had a play over the years. But one of the things I always struggle with is the spatial awareness. And this is something that when it comes to either light writing or calligraphy, you know, you and I haven't met. I've been lucky enough to spend an evening with Sam Mass, who is a fantastic calligrapher. And I was in a studio and I watched him creating these images. He took a portrait of me. And when I look at your images, I look at it and I know that you are in the dark. And I think people looking at this image, if you're a light painter, you know, but for those of you watching who are not a light painter, Aaron can't see what's going on here. He is basically in the dark, and in his mind, he is drawing and can see where the light's going, but then moves over here. And so you're up doing the tree, and then you're doing the side, and then you come down, and all of that is in your, would you say it's in your memory? I suppose it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
like it,
it's in my memory. I think I've always sort of had a photographic memory. And, you know, basically the best way to make this succinct is throw up a grid in what you would see as the frame. So you see me as the frame. You know, you could have a 3x3 nine squares. You could have a 2x3. It depends on how you want to break down each frame, but in each different section, you know what needs to be there. And that, as you get more complex in practice, you can do that. And that requires,
that's
it requires
a great
a
idea.
lot of practice.
So the other thing, and I'm just going to make this statement, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, you're using the light pen from Light Painting Paradise, which changes color and stuff. I'll link to that down below. I was in Ivan's I was in Ivan's workshop, and I was watching him solder these things together. But mate, you could, if you had a really basic camera with a basic kit lens, and you could set your camera to f5.6, you could make this image. You're not using any super mega crazy settings, are you? You just we don't need to look at the data exactly, but
yeah, no, you don't need a fancy camera. You really just need some repetition, a great attitude about expressing yourself, and some fun and some enjoyment, and a light writing tool.
And practice, mate?
Practice.
Yeah. People don't get frustrated. You know, if you're going to have a crack at this, don't get frustrated. Spend a night. Like, it may take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images to get this right, and you may struggle. Alrighty, so look, mate, we're going to keep moving. You know, I love this photograph. I love it technically. I love the depth. I love the way you framed, like you framed yourself in it. Talking about that framing is the one. It's a huge part of what it is. Look, technically, you're in focus. It's sharp. The light writing is gorgeous. I think it's a very, very nice image, and it's a method that is attainable for most people. I don't you know, and when I think of all of the different genres of light painting, I think it's up there in difficulty level. You know, if 0 is standing in front of a camera with a phone waving it around, and 10 is creating a ball of light on a cliff edge. No, I'm joking. That's danger, not difficulty. This is way up there, and I love what I'm really enjoying. You know, you say you've only been light painting for 2.5 years. I've been really enjoying watching your journey, mate. It's just a joy, and you bring this. We're wrapping up now, obviously. You bring this just gorgeous energy to the community, and look, again, I'm going to refer back to it because people just need to know this. I know the time and energy that you put into your podcast. I watch them from beginning to end. They're always insightful, beautiful people that you get on. You know, the Dennis Smith one is a little sketchy, but the balance of them are fine. So look, I'm gonna link to it below. I'm gonna encourage people to go and have a look and spend some time there. So we are. I'm gonna fire some people towards. It's an interesting time with social media. It's easy sometimes to just go over to Aaron's Instagram or Facebook, but like, where's the place you're most proud of to have people go and see what you do and follow your journey?
Yeah, you know, I would say subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that channel is full of tutorials. It's full of other artists. It's a very, very valuable resource. You know, my Instagram has links to all that, but I would really say check out the YouTube channel. There's a lot. It's a valuable resource. It's an amazing way to get to know these artists from all over the world. It's in one channel. Check it out. You won't regret it.
I agree, mate. I'm with you so much. You know, with the School of Light, I'm creating a video that looks back at history, looks at the history of our art form, and like way back 10, 12 years of what I call contemporary light painting. Yeah. And I always suggest to people that, you know, if you want to become a light painter and you want to do this more than just sort of mucking around, yeah, it's really important to understand the history, and there's no better way than you know, listening to other artists talk about it, because it's more than, I keep going on about this, it's more than this frame. Our art form has depth, and what you're doing on the podcast is you are deep diving into that history and that depth of the artist. So anyway, you're doing a magical job, mate. Thank you so much for being the very first person on the image breakdown of the School of Light. I'm going to have you back many times, I know, because your work is going in one direction, brother, and that is just straight up. I got goosebumps. I shit you not.
Thank you, Dennis. It's been an honor to be the first guest. Thank you for everything you've done for this community.
Peace.
I can't say thank you enough.
Peace. Beautiful.
I hope you enjoyed this visit to the School of Light. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be adding videos all the time. Head over to the light painting tool shop at the website. There's a huge array of tools I've made there for you to take on your light painting journey. Peace.